The live stream is kicked on. Should be showing. Okay, great. Let's go back to this then. Okay, good. All right, Denise, do you want to call the meeting to order?
Yes, please. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so the directors on the line, Brian from Groupon, Colleen from Microsoft, Ross from individual membership, Rod from NodeSource, Scott from Joyent, Charlie from GoDaddy, Justin from Google, Denise, obviously PayPal, Andy Updegrove is counsel on the line, and then from the Linux Foundation, this is Todd Benzies, also Michael Rogers and Tracy Hines are on the line.
I saw
Great,
Dan
thank
Shaw
you.
just joined too.
Yep, great.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. All right, let's get going. And this is the meeting information. You have it because you're on. Antitrust compliance notice. This is really, really important. If you don't understand it, please ask our counsel, Andy Updegrove, about the details. Member directory. As you can see, we don't have gold members anymore, so it makes this slide a little bit nicer. We have more on the platinum side now, so that's looking good. But no new members announced since our last meeting last month. All right, first resolution, that the meetings of the public session of the September 2016 meeting of the Board of Directors in the form hereto attached as Exhibit A are hereby confirmed, approved, and adopted. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
This is Charlie.
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
At the meeting.
Yep, cool. Okay, thanks.
Who-
Motion passed unanimously.
Who were the two? Who were the two abstaining, please?
Charlie and Ferros.
Okay.
Okay, so another resolution. Welcome to Daniel and Charlie, our new Platinum directors. So we've got a resolution here to acknowledge the appointment of these directors. The board hereby acknowledges the appointment of Platinum directors Charlie Robbins from GoDaddy and Daniel Shaw from NodeSource. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. All right, great to have you all on.
Woohoo.
Exciting stuff. All right. So, FYI, the board secretary position is still not filled. We do have 2 new board directors on, so I'm hoping that we can get a resolution to this, like right now. So, are there any directors that would like to fill the secretary position for us?
I would like to offer myself as secretary if you need somebody. Stan Shaw.
Cool. Would anybody
To be
else
clear, Dan, our good friends from the Linux Foundation do most of the work.
Yes, I vetted
Like,
that.
you don't
person.
actually have to
Thank
take
you.
minutes.
Yeah, you won't actually have to take the notes. You just have to sign the notes, basically.
Right. Yeah.
And would anybody else like to nominate? Nope. So now that we have one nominee, Andy, do we need to actually do a vote, or do we just pass it as a resolution?
Well, it's the same thing. We just need to have a vote to elect him as secretary, and I'll put it in the proper form in the minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, so can I get a motion? Sorry, actually, no, it's just a straight up vote, isn't it? Do we need a motion for a vote or no?
Yeah, well, resolutions and votes are the same thing. So someone to nominate him, someone to second, and then the actual vote would read that he would be hereby elected to be the secretary of Node.js to serve until the next annual meeting of directors and the election of a successor.
Fantastic. Okay, so can I get a nomination in a second?
This is Colleen. I'll do the nomination. Thanks, Dan.
I'll happily second.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? And passes unanimously. Welcome, Dan, as board secretary. Awesome. All right. Moving right along, Node.js in the media. So we've seen a decline since about March in general media coverage. It seems to be kind of flattening out. And we've seen Java kind of bounce around a bit. Again, we don't have sentiment analysis for this, so we don't know if this is actually good news in the press about Java or not. But we do know that generally, in terms of attention, we've been heading down a bit. My main question here, like we've been trying to track down why we've been declining in general coverage. If it's actually a problem with the metrics, or because we feel like we're being covered a lot, but maybe we're being covered more by analysts and less by the tech press or whatever. And so I want to know kind of if the different members are getting a lot out of these graphs, what else you'd like to see, if there's something that we can try to dig into, so that by the next meeting we can have something more useful than just, oh, hey, it looks like we're slowing down in terms of coverage.
Yeah, I would ask why we're only covering the Node.js tied to the enterprise. So I guess that's a bit strange from the the enterprise node company, blah blah blah. But why aren't we tracking just overall Node.js mentions versus overall Java mentions?
I'll ask about that and get it in from the marketing team. I think one reason was mainly just so that we track along with the same Java and enterprise line, because if we were using that as a baseline. But Node.js has less problems in terms of like Java is a more general term than Node.js. So I think that we actually would get something out of the line, even if it's not comparable to the Java line. So yeah, I'll ask specifically about that.
I don't know if this question was asked previously, but does a lot of this news coverage have to do with the Oracle suit?
Yeah, a ton of it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean, like, if you're going to talk about that, that's not. I wouldn't argue that's a positive.
It definitely isn't, but we also don't have sentiment analysis for our own coverage. So, I mean, if there was something bad happening to us, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also, we're not matching up with where we were before as well. So even in terms of our previous media coverage, we've been in decline a bit.
And Java now ships with the new toolbar, so I'm sure there's heaps of coverage for that.
That would be another example of negative coverage, I would imagine. Okay, so
I'd like to see general Node.js added to that. And Michael, when you're saying we don't have sentiment analysis added to this mix, are you saying that it's in the pipeline that we're going to have sentiment analysis? Do we want to add that sentiment analysis into this mix? Would we be enriched if we had more sentiment?
So these numbers come off of a general product that the Linux Foundation uses kind of internally to track media coverage. I will ask what it would take to get sentiment analysis in there and see if this is something that we can improve upon that way, or if maybe we have to do something on our own, or even maybe cut out some budget in order to get that in. I can see what it would take. What would it take in order to get that kind of analysis?
As I say, I think we have at least one or two corporate members that do that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to say that, but I didn't, because I worked there, so I knew that. I'm not going to mention one of the other necessarily, but yes, there are multiple that could do that for us. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Although most of those members also have issues with taking positions on things like that last night.
So another question is, this is just media. Do we have anything that brings in analyst coverage to compare that?
That's a much more difficult one. I mean, we know that analyst coverage is up because whenever they put out a report, they send it to us. The problem is that because we don't subscribe to those reports, we can't talk about them publicly. So in our executive session later, I will actually be telling you about one of them, but I can't say it on this public call because we would violate our terms with that particular analyst. So
makes sense. Thanks, Michael.
No problem.
I mean, it's not really media, but I have a bit of a bone to pick with our coverage and sort of getting the Node.js brand out everywhere. We got a little bit of stickers, and I think there's a lot more interest and intent to sort of embrace Node as a brand than we're fulfilling to the market. So something that we could do that's going to drive this media results is just do more that for individuals to be able to associate with the Node.js brand.
Definitely. So the shop.nodejs.org should be ready within about a month. So we'll be up and that will be there. And in fact, there'll be a thread in the build working group pretty soon about where to point that C name. So
great. Okay, and for the member companies that want to influence or help this, it's the marketing working group that we're doing things to engage there to drive that. Okay, great.
Definitely, and obviously we're lining up a lot of press over the next month around the event. So the more that every member can get coordinated around the press and announcements that we're lining up for that, the better. And we'll get a very, very big bump. I mean, the largest bump we've ever had in terms of coverage was in Node Interactive North America last year. So we would like to replicate or even go beyond that.
Okay. We're in a bit of a bad spot since we compete against AWS re:Invent. I've been sort of managing through that.
Yeah, we're trying to line up some stories before and after that. So even if we announce them there, we'll have kind of follow on with media. And there's a couple that we actually want to even put out beforehand, it's specifically so that we don't overlap that particular coverage with re:Invent.
Right on.
Okay, great. Let's move along. So in December, I'll be starting to put together all of the numbers and kind of metrics for us to do a very pretty kind of 2016 report. That is incorrect. 2017 report will not be until the end of next year. But a nice report for sort of what Node did in 2016, all of our kinds of accomplishments and stuff like that. I would love input from everybody here on the kinds of metrics that we would like to see, the kinds of successes and accomplishments that we should start pulling in for that. This sort of opened up to the call.
Yeah, I'd like to see jobs numbers. Thinking of the numbers that we covered last year and kind of the delta between those numbers. So if we could tap into real-world hiring around Node.js and presumably with an increase there, that would be a meaningful new metric that I would like to see.
That's a good one. I've seen those numbers fly by too, but I hadn't put together that should go in the report. Thanks. Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
And touching on,
I'd like to see something related to deployment methodologies and specifically Docker adoption in the community. Something we'd be interested in seeing.
That one might be a little bit trickier to get. We'd have to get those numbers from a vendor if they're willing to hand them over. Would Google be interested in handing over some of those numbers?
We can certainly take a look.
Okay.
Michael, is it possible for us to capture this as part of the survey that Greg and I are building?
Yes, but
did we capture something like this last year?
Yeah, the problem is that we don't get any absolute numbers from that, right? Like we get we
it's
can
just
kind
a
of
ratio
get,
sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like we get good ratios, we get good segment analysis, so what kinds of people are adopting Docker with Node, that kind of stuff. But we don't get great absolute numbers.
Right.
But I believe containers is already going to be a big part of that particular survey, because that's something that we really want to know.
So this is Andy Eptigrove. This may be perfectly innocuous information, but I didn't quite grasp what it was. I think in general, before you share any, internal information, be a good idea to let me know exactly what it is from an antitrust perspective before it's shared.
Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Good call. Okay, that's a very good point. Thank you, Andy.
Michael, this is Sarah Conway with LF2. This wouldn't be in time for rolling up results for reporting by next board meeting, but GNCF is starting to do ongoing surveys with people that have registered for their KubeCon event, so I don't know if there's a possibility of weaving something node-specific into a future report survey. We're going to be doing them several times throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. Well, we usually do a post-event survey, and we can get in whatever kind of stuff we want into that. But we're also gearing up for a larger survey in January, similar to what we did last year, but like way bigger, right?
Yeah, and I guess I was thinking that coupled with something like a KubeCon, pre-reg list of 1,000+ attendees might give some data points.
Oh yeah, definitely. Also, we should talk with the ContainerCon, KubeCon people about what they're doing in their post-event survey, so that we can try to line up anything with our post-event survey, and we can compare and contrast as well. Be good to be on the same, asking the same kinds of questions. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that hasn't been developed yet, obviously. So yeah, we can do that.
Okay, great.
So one of my favorite numbers from last year is the number of contributors to the project. I think that's fantastic. I'd like to see us capture, and I don't know exactly how to go about doing this, but something that's important, something that we're going to be discussing is our efforts around inclusivity. And I don't think our numbers are good there, but I'd like to see us capture that and maybe put that in front of ourselves, so we're actively tracking that and kind of keeping ourselves honest in that respect.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good transition. So I'm only interrupting because that's a very good transition. So I just want to make sure that nobody else has any ideas about this particular slide, and then we can actually use that as a great transition point. So anything else that people would like to see in the 2016 report? Okay, no, great. So Tracy, sorry.
I actually do have a thought. Sorry, if I can continue there.
Okay.
Where are we getting this from our member companies, or are we only relying on data sources like Node.js.org and other folks that offer up the data? So what are we thinking of in terms of what data sets we could possibly bring to bear?
So we can get we try to pull in data from multiple sources, right? So we use any analyst data or analyst reports. We really love a lot of the RedMonk data, for instance, that comes out. We tend to pull that. We pull numbers that we get from NPM. We have a model of data that we also put that into that has stuff like the download metrics from of core from the website. We have the Google Analytics on the website as well. So we have a big bunch of numbers that we can draw on, plus all of the GitHub data and all of that kind of stuff. But for certain things that we may want to get, like for instance the Docker container stuff, we would definitely need to ask members about their data for that.
So just thinking of the Node.js everywhere, be great if we could add in some sort of numbers or metrics around Electron.
That's a really good
how
point.
we obtain that.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I'll talk. Jacob Groundwater just started managing that team, so I'll talk with him about any metrics that they might have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. That's a really good point.
And similarly, if we had some meaningful number around IoT, like you said, I can kind of see, where we could get the data for Electron. I have no idea where we'd get enough signal around IoT to have it be meaningful data.
I'll talk with Rick.
I'm sure that the LOSIM folks would be interested and willing to contribute there. But yeah, I like talking to the NodeBots group. Good.
The Johnny 5 people in Boku tend to have some understanding there too. I'll talk with Rick about that.
Perfect.
Anything else before we move on?
I'm done.
Okay, so returning to that last question, Tracy, what kinds of metrics can we see about inclusivity data?
Yes, so I was unfortunately unable to share this link prior because we had a couple docs flying around with different groups, and I didn't want that to be the document that y'all would get to look at because those were different perspectives, a bit of a mess, and a lot of commenting. So this is the final, it's in the chat for GoToMeeting. So that was unfortunate. I wasn't able to share that with Michael ahead of time to put in the slide deck, but it's also a lot of words. So I'm going to kind of cover the higher level, and then y'all are welcome to, I've made that open for commenting. Okay. Oh, weird. It should have let you.
Yeah, Tracy, we don't have access.
Maybe I grabbed the wrong link version of that. Let me try again because I think that it's important for y'all to be able to.
Let's make sure that we get that out to the list after.
Thank you, Tracy. When I was reading the other thing that you sent, I was having trouble finding commenting as well.
There we go. That's that shared link that I've clicked again. If you'll let me know if you have a problem with that one.
I still have a problem with it. Yeah.
What the heck? Okay. All right. Well, that's unfortunate. So, I should have. I've never had this. Oh, that's why. Okay. Let's do this. Oh, it's because it's gating it to the Linux Foundation. I apologize.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm doing that now because this is important for y'all to see that. All right, so I've gotten a lot of input from various folks in the community. We've also had some meetings, but we were continuing to have meetings. The idea behind this link is that by having this document and by looking at these options, this is not the be-all, end-all of inclusivity for Node, but this is our starting point. And I was really trying to make sure that we included a number of folks for that. So that's an apology for why it took so long for me to be able to do this on top of the other things that we were doing. But let's try that one more time. Third time's got to be a charm. Okay.
Good access now.
All right, Yahtzee. So what we talk about here is sort of the crux of all of this to me, and something that I've talked to with a number of folks in the TSC and the CTC is sort of why the inclusivity working group was such a misfit where it was, and not that it wasn't well intended, but that we need to, regardless of who owns the organization, regardless of me and Michael. And other folks as leaders in this project trying to help improve inclusivity, it needs to be owned by everyone as an idea. We think the inclusivity working group should still exist, but I don't think that it should exist as part of the TSC, which is absolutely the sort of the gardener of the code project. I think somebody within the exec part of the foundation, such as myself, should be able to participate, but I don't think that I should own it as well. And there's always a chance that the priority of the next person, if that were to happen with the education community manager, would not quite have the same priority or perspective in that. So I think that ultimately what should happen, and there's a drawing that I can do for that but did not create the diagram, is that I think that there should be a community organization alongside the TSC under the Node Foundation, and I know that that's a massive ask. So that would that I'm happy to answer lots of questions about. But ultimately, what I see over and over again is that there are a ton of organizations that aren't necessarily code specific, such as Node School, Node Bots, and all of the meetups. Lots of events-based or driven things. Node Together is another one. That have absolutely helped grow the Node community. And they don't necessarily need monetary support from us or need to be under the org, but they need representation. So I see something like the community organization alongside the TSC being a good place for a lot of these things that, from an idea standpoint, that don't belong under the TSC, but absolutely need help and support in some way. And there's people who want to help do that. I think that the inclusivity working group would be an excellent fit under that organization, and that would still, again, be community owned. So that's the first thing that I would recommend, and I'm happy to email or discuss this further. The second is the diversity training, which I know I talked about with a few of you. I've talked to a number of consultants. I think Ash Dryden is the consultant that I would recommend for us to help with there. I've talked with a number of other consultants who quite honestly liked the idea of what I was talking about them helping us with, but didn't feel comfortable taking that on themselves. It was a little bit outside of their domain experience. And I also thought that it would be helpful for, with that other leaders from the Node Foundation, such as parts of the TSC or other working groups, would, if interested, would also benefit from participating in that. I am meeting with Ash next week. It's been incredibly difficult to schedule these meetings to get the quote. All of these folks are awesome and really busy. So Ash had availability next week. I'll talk to her and have the actual number for that. Another thing that I'd recommend and have experienced myself is the idea of peer mediation. So documents as a resource online, but also the option of having more people who are facilitators to be able to do this sort of thing at meetups or workshops. And that helps encourage a better style of communication for folks, both in person and online. I think that that's something that you'll sort of see on the, you'll see as like a non-technical talk at a conference that a lot of people actually attend and benefit from. They really appreciate. And then there's more champions within the community that are leading that help your conversation. Because a lot of what I've seen is not actually inclusivity or diverse. It's not, let's say, it's not an inclusivity issue, or it's not a diversity issue. It is making people feel welcome. So it's more of the inclusivity problem that we're not able to communicate sort of on a level playing field, and because of that, people get emotional and passionate and can't communicate well. Another thing that I'd recommend is the refactor of our online communication channels. So there are a couple there. One is the sort of synchronous chat setting currently existing in both IRC and Slack. We don't have an official one for the Node Foundation overall. So I've got two options there, which is one, sort of encourage the existing option, which is our IRC channels, but make sure that they're discoverable to people who are looking for them because they're all over the place. And also another issue there is that we don't have a consistent coverage of the code of conduct, and because of that, as a community leader, I can't recommend sending folks who have questions to a space that isn't covered by the code of conduct, because I don't feel like that's safe, or moderated essentially by people who are a part of our code project.
Also, I would just say, like, completely outside of that, the IRC moderation stuff is like very weird and kind of historical. It's literally like it's still owned by Isaac somehow. The policies around it are like on his blog. And he's actually wants to get this off of his plate. So just some background there.
As part of that, I've indicated that we'll have to refactor. So the IRC challenge, if the challenges of us refocusing our energy on IRC as the medium and official like chat channel, is that we have to refactor those policies and make sure that the people who are currently participating in the project are happy with this and feel comfortable acting and moderating with those guidelines. So the other option is sort of the nuclear option, and some would say less open, and that would be Slack. So the idea would be to create a new central Slack organization. By doing that, you do have a gating, and the only gating, because I want to make sure that it's open by default, is them signing up and agreeing to the code of conduct as part of the sign up. By them signing up, they are saying and participating that they have to follow the code of conduct. And by doing that, then we have a much easier, I think we have an understanding from the get-go, as opposed to sort of grandfathering in the code of conduct into channels that people may have existed in on IRC for quite some time. There are downsides to Slack. One of them being, if we use the non-paid version, which we absolutely have to do for cost reasons, there is not a persistence of conversations, so we would have to set up external mechanisms for logging, which I also think we need to do for IRC, but I think that I don't know what the cost differences, if any, would be for that. So that needs to be discussed, and that won't be able to happen without the TSC for sure being on board with either of those options, because there are so many existing places where those conversations happen that buy-in is just absolutely essential. The next is prioritizing seeking a diverse range of candidates for hiring and vendors. That's simply that, moving forward, if it wasn't already considered, most of our member companies are doing a very similar thing where they just try and make sure that they have a diverse pool of candidates anytime they're considering a candidate for hire or for contracting. So that's something I think that's just another way of our leadership being able to say, we believe in this and we're doing this, we're sharing that by showing our actions as well as our words. And then another one, which is what Dan had brought up earlier and is absolutely essential to all of this and was my biggest challenge in this, was that we have to measure and set reasonable goals for diversity and inclusivity. And I don't have those numbers. So we need to, in order to be able to increase representation from our global community, I have to know some of our numbers to begin with. And I don't really think I got that from the survey last year. So Greg and I are working on building a much more comprehensive survey. We're also going to be releasing it at Node Interactive on top of trying to build up a much larger network to share this with in order to get a better representation of where we're at, who are our users, why are they using Node, why are they using the tools connected to Node. And we'd love input on that. I've got a document that we're already starting to work on with that, and we're absolutely going to be shipping that for Node Interactive because that's essential to getting the numbers that I need for engagement. So that's, yeah.
It's a big brain.
Any questions?
If you want the longer version, you can read the doc.
Yeah. And I'm happy to answer a lot of these questions via email as well. But after I do get some feedback, I will be approaching the TSC with this.
Tracy,
yeah, so can I suggest in the interest of time that we all take some time to read it and comment the document and engage with our questions that way for now. Yeah. I think that there's been a lot of thought and thoughtful work put into this, and it brings up a lot of questions automatically if you haven't been in the middle of it. So maybe read other people's comments too before you write yours.
Yeah, definitely the context around it, sure.
Yeah, let's spend a little bit of time chewing on this online rather than doing it right now in person, please, because we're going to run out of time if we do that.
That's a good point.
Oh.
Right. Right. Is just along those lines, are we going to make a decision around the online community things, trying to make a decision in our next meeting, or what's our timeline for that?
Well, that falls on the TSC, basically. So,
okay. I think Dan may have missed the sort of the context of why I'm giving this update in the first place. So the TSC came to the board with a request for us to investigate how the inclusivity working group responsibilities could change. And this is sort of the report on that. So once I go from here, because some of this does require sort of the board's participation in, then we would go back to the TSC to share like what we think should happen.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving along, TSC update. So first of all, I know that we've been getting tons of questions from the community, and including when we do these on the state of ES6 modules. I went down to the TC39 meeting last month and actually got a lot of really positive feedback. Got things moving in a pretty positive direction, we all think, and all the stakeholders were pretty happy and excited about it towards the end. Bradley still did the majority of like the real kind of technical work. It was mostly just sort of like politicking and consensus seeking to get past a couple issues. But that's looking much better. And now I'll turn over to Rod for the rest of this. So.
Okay, am I on?
Yep.
Thank you. A very productive month, October. We've got 3 major events. The first one is version 6 transition to our second LTS line, codenamed Boron. We had a lot of coverage around that. I'm really happy with the synchronization between the technical team and the marketing team for October. It took a little bit to get there, but it was a really good launch. We also launched a new current release line, version 7. And we're getting close to some JavaScript features that everyone's clamoring for, async await. That may be coming in the middle of the current release line. That was also pretty successful. And version 0...
Rod, you cut out. Did Rod cut out for everybody else? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Y'all still there?
Thank you, Rod. I was just fighting with my mute button. Thank you for that.
I guess I'll throw in one question. I know that there were some challenges in the module ecosystem around V7. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, or we can take it offline.
Look,
around graceful.
There's always challenges when we do these new ones because there are these small edge cases that catch a few users and it tends to become noisy. So there will be an ironing out period to make sure that we have made the right compromises on these changes that we're trying to make and not break too many people. I would expect within the next couple of months to see resolution to some of the actually I think there's only a couple of really contentious things that people are making a noise about, and I personally don't think they're that big. So that's sort of to be expected with the current release lines, because we do introduce a batch of breaking changes and then we suddenly find out that they break edge cases that we weren't even aware of. So it's a way of discovering, all these different corners of the ecosystem, and also lots of opinions that we didn't know existed in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, for this. We backed out stuff before.
Yeah, no, I know. 6 did the same thing. It's sort of the orders of magnitude for how bad we think they're going to be. Obviously, the LTS lifecycle has done us a lot of favors in this, because most big companies don't adopt this for another year. So you've got that window to make those changes. So thanks. That answers my question.
Any remaining questions before we close it out? All right. I asked a little while ago in the YouTube if there were any questions, and there haven't been. So I think we're good. Denise, do you want to call it to a close?
I was fighting again with that touch screen thing. Yeah, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.